the Housing and Urban Affairs Minister, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, who's joining us on the show. Sir, many thanks for speaking to us and taking your time out. Let me first begin by talking about, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code ordinance that has gotten a go-ahead. It now seeks to give same rights as financial creditors to home buyers, and although it's going to be a huge shot in the arm, but do you believe, given the spate of cases that we've seen with Unitech, the likes of JP, Amrapali, HDIL, all these cases stuck in the court, how will this really change the lives of home buyers? Is this coming in too little too late?
Real estate developers have gone bankrupt is one segment of the story. There are poor, vulnerable home buyers. Many of them are not speculative investors. They put their life savings into one project, which was a home, and they found that they were duped by unscrupulous builders or promoters. Some of them you referred to as having gone bankrupt. Well, what actually happened? I think the story is quite clear. A lot of people ended up signing one-sided contracts. They put their life savings into these projects. But there are others who had, the earnings from activities which cannot be described as legit. Instead of keeping the money at home in gunny bags, they went and gave it to builders and said, "Agli bari aapka koi project banega, hamare naam pe bhi 2 flat kar dena." This was not realistic appraisal of value or price. And, 10 years the person, the promoter or builder took your money or the vulnerable home buyer's money and invested it into a land bank. And meanwhile, for a variety of reasons, oversupply or whatever, the value of land and the land bank dropped. And therefore, even if he did not want to be looking at bankruptcy, he became bankrupt. So the prime requirement in a situation where the entire sector was characterized by malpractices, you heard of terms like 80-20, 60-40, is to set the sector right. So why don't you look at what we've done as a government? First of all, for the first time after 70 years, we have a regulator. And the fact that you have RERA means that the kind of malpractices that existed in the past will no longer be able. Now, if somebody takes their home buyer's money, he has to put 70% of it into an escrow account. So the problems are being solved one by one. You got RERA, you got GST, you got concessions in the budget, you have affordable housing, you've got a reduced rate of GST on affordable housing. Then came RERA and the Insolvency Board. Now, both of these are pieces of legislation which came roughly at the same time. So, which supersedes the other? Now, clearly, from the time I've become a minister in September 2017, we have been advocating from this ministry with the Department of Corporate Affairs that, look, the home buyer has contributed to the creation of the asset. Some of them have paid 70%, 80% of the value. Now, in any insolvency procedure or any resolution procedure, for the home buyer not to have a say at all. Now, but every time there was an argument. So I am delighted. As the Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs, I am delighted that we finally have, through an ordinance, a system of safeguarding the interests of the home buyers, safeguarding them to the extent that in any resolution proceeding, their voice will also be heard.
Absolutely. But Mr. Puri, while on one hand we do appreciate the efforts to safeguard the interest of home buyers, you did say that the sector has seen so many malpractices, mainly on account of the bankers and the realtors being hand in hand. Do you think that the steps taken now are too little too late? While yes, the Modi government has been sympathetic towards home buyers, yet, they've not been able to fully protect the interest of the buyers. Do you believe in the last 4 years, this could be one of the failures, the fact that the solution has come in a little too late?
Well, I must take issue with your too little too late description for a simple reason. You use this term, at least in the English language, too little too late, when you have reached a conclusion that the sector which you are describing is now doomed and it has failed. I think what you're going through is a cyclical problem. I already see recovery in the sector, in not the very strong, robust recovery which I'm looking for, but there is again revival of demand. New projects are beginning to come up. There is unsold inventory. So to say that it's too little, too late, I don't agree with that at all. In fact, we've taken a large number of steps. GST demonetization are very much central to this sector. And now you have a clear indication of who has the money, where the money has come from. You can, once you increase the tax base, you can bring down the level of taxation also. Otherwise, you know, a country of 1.3 plus billion people, and how many percentage of people pay income tax? That itself is a point. So I think what you're witnessing in the real estate sector is a much needed, long overdue process of correction. And I think it is coming in small but significant steps, and the ordinance yesterday in favor of the home buyers is one additional significant step.
Absolutely. You know, the IBC ordinance really gives a shot in the arm to the home buyers. Let me now shift focus to housing for all by 2022. That was Prime Minister Modi's biggest scheme for the real estate sector. We are given to understand that you're personally looking at advancing some of those deadlines. Has that been done in order, you know, to give a fillip to the 2019 general elections talk as well?
Well, I take the 2019 general election in my stride, but let me give you the figures first. I think we are looking at hopefully 350 seats in 2019, so I wouldn't dovetail a scheme which was to be completed in 2022. Well, let me give you the hard reality. You know, in 2011, much before I arrived on the scene, and when I was actually in New York as permanent representative to the UN, this ministry had carried out a study as to what is the total number of homes required to be built in India. You know, there were different studies carried out. That placed the gap at something around 18 million. Then they sent that study for validation to the different state governments and to the union territories. And they came up with a revised figure of 11 million. So in 2015, when this housing for all Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana took off, it had two segments. It had for the economically weaker section and the lower income groups. Subsequently we added the middle income group to it. Now, if you have to build 11 million homes by 2022, each home having a pakka, a kitchen, a toilet, the title of the home has to be in the name of the lady of the house, providing gender you know, empowerment, a big fillip, dignity to the girl child and so on. As of 31st March, and the latest figure I have, as against the 11 million that we have to build, we've already sanctioned 46 million. Sorry, 4.6 million. That is 46 lakhs. Now, the average demand on us per month is from 300,000, it ranges to 500,000. Now, we've already sanctioned 4.6 million. If we sanction in the next 12 months the lower figure of 300,000, that makes it 3.6 million additional in 1 year's time. So if you add 4.6 to 3.6, you're pretty close to the you know, 1 crore or 1.1 million that you have. If you do the calculation at the rate of 500,000 a month, 500,000 into 12 is 60 lakhs. If you add 60 lakhs to the 46 lakhs already sanctioned, that makes it almost the figure. So no matter which way you look at it, you should be able, if we have the same level of resources being available to us, and that's the crucial question in this area, we should be able to complete the target not by 2022 but by 2020, and in fact even by the end of 2019 if necessary. Is this being done because of the election? Well, that's purely coincidental. Let me put it the other way around. The offtake in any scheme like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, its first 15 months go in working out a project, selecting which technology you're going to use, and then it comes. So out of the 46 lakhs homes which we have sanctioned, 26 have been grounded, 7 completed. But you know, a housing project typically takes between 12 months to 18 months or whatever. You'll find this multiplying very quickly. My expectation is by the end of 2019, we'll have the entire project, which was due for completion in 2022, completed at this rate.
Absolutely. Mr. Puri, you know, you were talking about the fact that resources in a scheme like this, housing for all by 2022, will be very critical. But what's in it for developers? Because look at the builders, they're still bleeding. This is not a high margin business. What are you going to tell the realtors, and why should they really come into the affordable housing space?
You know, my advice to the builders, and it's not something I'm saying to you only on camera and through you to your viewers, is that the builders, as indeed foreign investors outside the country, have to realize that the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and the fact that you have to build 10 or 11 million homes, I mean, that's not the only building which is taking place. I mean, you are building, private builders are building homes in any case. There's massive redeployment of government housing and colonies taking place, East Kidwai Nagar, Sarojini Nagar, etc. Just to give you an example, there is money to be made. Once the realization comes that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is also a win-win for the builders, you see, typically the builders have concentrated on high value, larger luxury properties. And I think there's a slight glut there. That is what you see in and around Delhi. But that will be corrected over a period of time. The Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has assured demand. The fact of the matter is, under all 4 vectors, you know, there are 4 vectors: in situ slum redevelopment of the kind that we've done in Katputli colony, where a project was stuck for 8 years. We've revived it. We've given those 2,800 families temporary homes, and we're going to give them their homes back by March 2019. Okay. The other is beneficiary-led development. If you own an ancestral home, you don't have the money to do it up, the state government or the central government will give you some money and you can do up your place. The third is the credit-linked subsidy scheme, where as a typical young professional, you're going into the market, you want to buy a home. If you go to a bank will give you interest, let's say X percentage. We will give you what is called interest subvention, 3 or 4% of the cushion upfront, so that the young professionals' burden is eased somewhat. And the fourth one is affordable housing and partnership, where let's say typically a dwelling for the segment known as economically weaker section costs 6 lakhs. State government will give you 1.5 lakhs, we'll give you 1.5 lakhs, some state governments are giving the full. So all these 4 vectors are moving beautifully. The demand is there. Why is there money to be made here? Why is this win-win? Because the demand is given. In any other housing project you start, many people start projects in the hope that as they build, they will be able to sell. Now what has happened in the past is they've taken people's money, not been able to complete the projects because the builder went bankrupt. Why did it? This is the only place in the world I know of where somebody takes your money and doesn't give you your project back for 10 years. Why has it happened? Because there were malpractices there. There was delinquent behavior. All these steps that I mentioned to you are correcting that. So it's not too little too late. It's long overdue and much needed reform which has come into the sector.
Absolutely long overdue, much needed. And in fact, that can be seen now, you know, after the government has implemented RERA also. But do you believe the implementation of RERA has left you a little disappointed? Because, you know, so far only states like Maharashtra, MP and Rajasthan have a permanent regulator. There are 15 states that still don't have a RERA website, which means buyers still don't know which are the, you know, buildings, which buildings are there, where the approvals are there. How are you really going to fix this?
I think the figures that you are citing remind me of you know, people starting to compliment or you know, criticize the features of a newborn baby. For heaven's sake, it's only 1 year old, number one. And some kids learn to crawl and walk very quickly, others take slightly longer. But believe me, I had the first meeting of the RERA advisory committee. We're looking at particular specific dates for 3 regional workshops for the states, one for West India, one for East, one for the South. And I can assure you, it's taking off again. Look, when you haven't done something, the natural tendency is, oh, RERA, good, I'll get my Urban Affairs Secretary to double up as the Chief of RERA.
Absolutely. We understand how you're looking at, now speaking to all the states and ensuring that RERA is implemented properly. Let me also talk about another big issue. In fact, in one of your interviews to ET Now, you did talk about how the real estate sector, the fact that, right now it's such a huge generator of black money, you're looking to link it with Aadhaar. Where are the plans with respect to that? In fact, even the Prime Minister has endorsed it. But why has it not happened so far?
I made the statement in my personal capacity, and I think ET made a big this thing out of it. And then afterward, the Prime Minister mentioned it, I think, at the Hindustan Times Summit. But again, those are ideas. And if you ask me for my personal view, yes, I think it's that's what it should logically come. But there's no government policy on it yet.